Thank you, Lacey. Sorry about that, everyone. I should have checked sooner. My apologies, guys. Let's start this all over again. Sorry about that, everyone.
Hang on. Now I've got some
sooner.
My apologies. Now guys. I have some background sound coming out that I don't need to hear. Sorry about that, everyone. Twitch, YouTube, and especially Substack, because Lacey and Beth let me know that my mic was muted. You know, there's always something. The one day I finally get YouTube working. I have all of the socials working for the live stream. YouTube, Twitch, and Substack. And then I find a way to fuck it up by just not unmuting my microphone and speaking for, 5.5 minutes. So I appreciate you sticking around. My apologies. Again, thank you, Lacey and Beth, for making that clear. Let's start over again, shall we? Apologies again. There's a lot of news today. There's a shit ton of news today. There is more news today than one would need to deal with, but we're going to deal with all of it. I'm going to try to deal with all of it in this 30-minute clip today, or in this 30-minute live that's going to be a recorded clip as well. The news includes, obviously, the war is back on. The village idiot has stumbled us back into an active war with Iran. We're going to talk about it. There were the elections yesterday. Nancy Mace, I think, Congresswoman Nancy Mace is the most entertaining story from yesterday's elections. There is the inflation numbers. We're at 4.2% inflation right now, and that's even if the Bureau of Labor Statistics is giving us accurate information. It could potentially be worse, but at least that's the data we have. That's the highest inflation rate since 2023. And the New York Times, what you're seeing right now, the New York Times came out with a bombshell story this morning. This story is about Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein cover-up. Instead of wasting your time again, and I apologize for doing it before when there was no sound, instead of wasting your time again, I'm going to play this rather long clip from the New York Times. It's Maggie Haberman, who, if you follow the Times at all, she's one of their star reporters. And the other reporters, his last name is Swan. I can't remember what his first name is. He used to be one of the chief reporters from Axios. He must have moved over to the Times. I didn't know that he did this. Apparently, they're writing a book together, and they have in that book. This is some of this bombshell reporting. So take a listen. This is going to last for a few minutes, but they explain this better than I can.
In 2025.
You would have gotten the impression that the Epstein files were a relatively minor issue.
President Trump suggested that nobody cared.
He said that the Epstein story was boring.
That this was a hoax.
These files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama.
But what we learned while we were reporting our book, Regime Change, was just how much the Trump administration, up to the highest levels of the government, were paralyzed over how to deal with a growing crisis. Their biggest obstacle was Donald Trump.
Trump wanted it buried. He didn't want to release the files. His staff knew that this was an issue that they couldn't really talk about.
People in his orbit found him snapping at them if they even raised the issue of Jeffrey Epstein.
So over the summer of 2025, you had some of Trump's most senior advisors, the top level of the government, gathered in the Situation Room,
which is typically used for national security or responding to national disasters,
to figure out a way to spin their way out of this.
Not with the president, but among themselves.
It was an issue that came back to bite them, because many of the same senior people who were in the Situation Room were very strong advocates for releasing the Epstein files, way back even before the 2024 campaign, and potentially a client list, a list of powerful men who were, the rumors had it, involved in sex trafficking with Epstein. We have seen no evidence that there is a client list.
But the idea of a client list had been popularized by, among others, Trump's future vice president.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
His future FBI director.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
And his future deputy FBI director.
The Epstein client list, I believe, is going to rock the political world. There's a reason they're hiding it.
After he was elected, his own attorney general appeared to confirm that a client list existed.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
They go through the files and the message changes very substantially. Very quickly, it became clear that Trump himself was mentioned numerous times across these files.
Does not mean that anything said there was verified about Trump or anyone else, but it did mean that releasing the files was a non-starter for the president and his team.
In the coming months, there were internal conversations about, well, what do we do?
In early July, the Justice Department and the FBI released a joint memo with no names attached to it, just letterhead, saying, in fact, there was no client list and that there were no other people who should be prosecuted in connection with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes.
And all of a sudden, many of his voters who thought that they were electing a president and people around him to get to the bottom of the Epstein story were suddenly feeling that they were actually part of a cover-up.
How many of you are satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation?
During this whole period, Trump was just getting more and more fed up.
He was very used to telling his base what to think and having them believe him.
He accused his supporters of being weaklings. He said he didn't want their support anymore.
He used expletives to say this was all fake, and again said this was all the fault of Democrats.
Any attempts that Trump made to downplay the scandal only reinforced suspicions among his base that they were hiding something. So at those meetings last summer, when President Trump's most senior aides gathered away from him, the vice president thought that they should put everything out there, that Congress was going to force the issue anyway. Others, like the chief of staff, said absolutely no way the president would be okay with that. There was a conversation about whether Todd Blanche, who was the Deputy Attorney General at the time, whether he should go on Joe Rogan. The vice president said that he should be the one to go on Rogan.
What they didn't talk about was prosecuting additional men or any kind of widespread justice for the victims. We're talking about a number of women who say that they were victimized and abused by Jeffrey Epstein. Many of them were minors. The discussion in the Situation Room was not about how to give these women a hearing or a chance to tell their stories. These meetings were about how to handle the political fallout around the White House.
What ended up happening is their hand was forced by Congress. They ultimately passed, nearly unanimously, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Trump was forced to sign it, and what was clear from our reporting is even after that, even after the passage of this bill and the release of so many of these files, the issue didn't go away at all. Maggie and I obtained a document written by President Trump's top pollster, Tony Fabrizio, which described focus groups that were conducted in March of this year.
It was the sixth most important issue raised by voters in this focus group.
Head of crime and safety, the military, data centers. I mean, these are really potent political issues that ranked below the Epstein files. More than a year after they first started to try to deal with the Epstein crisis.
He just simply could not make it go away by telling his supporters they should believe him instead of something else. If you were watching the Trump administration in 2020.
So I know there's nothing, let me just pop this off into another, because this is going to be a little bit distracting.
Files were made up by Comey. They were Obama.
Okay. I know if you watch my lives or my content, there was nothing that they spoke about that you didn't already know, right? We know all that, right? There was no, in this report by Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman, there was nothing new, right? We knew they were doing this. We knew they were, we knew it, right? There were things that were reported. We knew they were covering everything. We knew they were covering up the Epstein files. We knew that Trump didn't want to be bothered with it. We knew there even was reporting back when this first happened that it was just J.D. Vance and the rest of the goofballs without the idiot met in the Situation Room, which again is, as Maggie said, is a place where presidents meet for national security issues, right? They meet for natural disasters, right? When Obama had Osama bin Laden assassinated, President Obama, Secretary of State Clinton, and the rest of the national security team were in the Situation Room watching in real time the military go after bin Laden, right? That's what the Situation Room is for. It's not for sycophants who are trying to protect the idiot in the White House to gather together to try to figure out a way to keep people from learning that he's a rapist pedophile, right? That he's a pedophile rapist. We knew he was a rapist before, but the Epstein files, at least as far as I'm concerned, confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's also a pedophile rapist. So that's not what that's not what the Situation Room is designed for. That's not what it's for. But there was reporting that they met there. They, of course, denied all that. All of that was denied. And then there were other things, that were reported on, and other things that were obviously implied about the way they were reacting to this Epstein cover-up over the months, the way they, over the months and weeks, and it. So I think what this story that Haberman and Swan broke today. Now, I haven't read the article yet. I haven't had a chance to read the article yet. It's a pretty in-depth piece in the New York Times. I do plan to read it later in the day, and I may go live, or I may just do a recorded discussion about it once I read the details. This sort of video montage between Haberman and Swan gives us a pretty good overview of what the story's about. But I'm sure they left some of the juicy stuff in there, and I'm sure there's more details. But it appears to me that what it mostly does is confirm and validate everything that we believed was going on that may or may not have been reported at the time. There's what was reported, and then there was what you could infer. And I think also we'll see what happens with this. But I think there's a pretty good chance that this story grows throughout the day and evolves throughout the day today and opens up the can of worms that is the Epstein cover-up at what is the absolute worst time possible for the village idiot Donald Trump. We have this barrage of news today that normally each news article that I'm going to discuss in this segment, each news article is a story in and of itself and would be a distraction from the other story. But I feel that Trump is so politically damaged right now, and he is so incredibly politically vulnerable right now at this moment because he's such a fucking idiot. And the people surrounding him are idiots, and they're so desperate. I think this is such a desperate political moment that they're not going to, like, there's no way he's going to be, instead of doing what they normally do, which is create nonsensical news, sometimes catastrophic nonsensical news, to distract from the negative news that is out at any given moment. And they're usually successful at that. I think the plethora of stories right now are going to complement each other. And I think they are going to complement the political train wreck right now that is the Trump administration and the idiots who are in it. And I think the Epstein cover-up story, which months and months and months ago, I told you guys, I felt that this was the story that ends the Trump presidency in terms of political validity. He became invalid first because of the Epstein files cover up and because it would never go away. The story would never go away. And even though the media won't go there, Trump is a rapist. He's a pedophile rapist. And there is enough, in my opinion, circumstantial evidence that we've seen in the Epstein files to confirm in the court of public opinion that he certainly raped at least one, possibly two underage girls through Epstein's opportunistic crimes. And I don't think that's even negotiable. But the media is not comfortable going there yet, but I think we are heading there shortly. And I think this story, combined with the other stories I am going to tell you about, are going to put the Trump administration in I think they're going to be backed further into a corner over the next few days. We'll see. I mean, I'm usually wrong about this, and it doesn't happen the way I think it's going to happen. But I think this story explodes over the next 4 or 5 hours. You combine this story, okay, with this story. The war is back on. The war in Iran is back on. The Iranians apparently shot down a U.S. Apache helicopter. The pilot survived. Surprisingly, CENTCOM didn't lie about it, saying that the helicopter just had an accident, which could suggest, usually CENTCOM lies to us every time the Iranians shoot something down and say it was just an accident. It was a training accident or some other thing. But Trump came out and said right away that the Iranians downed the helicopter and that he was going to get revenge. So obviously, they want to, the village idiot, I guess, has decided that he wants to go back to war. We retaliated, bombing some Iranian sites. The Iranians subsequently retaliated, hitting, and CENTCOM lies, like the Trump administration lies, Central Command lies. So we have no idea how much damage was the U.S. naval base in Bahrain received. We just know that and how many U.S. personnel were injured or potentially killed, God forbid. We don't know any. We're not. The legacy media is sort of downplaying any potentiality of that, not reporting on it. Just reporting about Trump's babbling, stupid fucking, threats on Truth Social. There have been other Iranian attacks on civilian infrastructure in the region. And again, our information on this is limited. The idiot has said that he's going to hit back now, and we're back in the war. And I'm going to read you a little reporting in just a moment. So again, we can kind of see where we are, but I just want to give you this whole grand picture of the situation as like the political situation that's unfolding right now, all at the same time. So you've got this blockbuster bombshell story coming out from the New York Times. Then you have the war kicking back into middle gear, and it sure as hell looks like it's going to kick into high gear at any moment, if it isn't there already. You have the price of oil. I know as of yesterday, the price of oil jumped another 2% back up because of Iran downing the helicopter, and I know there was another leap because of Trump responding, as the Iranians now have responded to the idiot responding. I think, again, I haven't checked the price of oil this morning. I haven't had a chance, but I'm sure we're going to see the price of oil. We all knew that the 20% drop, which took us from, in where I'm living, took us from, say, $4.29 a gallon, between $4.29 a gallon and $4.69 a gallon to at the lowest prices, $3.99 and $3.95 a gallon. I knew that wasn't going to last. And so we're going to see those prices go up later today or tomorrow. And depending on how much escalation happens will depend on how far that increase is. But we knew the decrease, nothing had really changed in the Strait of Hormuz, except for Trump lying that we were this close to it's going to happen in maybe Monday or Tuesday. We're going to have a deal. It's going to be fantastic. And then the energy secretary lying, Trump's energy secretary lying that there's actually secretly lots of boats coming through the Strait of Hormuz. They're turning off their transponders, and they're somehow maybe being escorted by the U.S. Navy, which they're not. They're not. And he was kind of cagey about whether or not the Navy. He wanted to sort of give the impression that the Navy is doing it with saying that the Navy, without saying that the Navy's actually doing it. It was just a straight up lie. But that was to manipulate the markets, the stock market, and the commodities markets to get the price of oil to drop. And we saw the gas prices go down a little bit over the last couple of days. It's on its way back up. But you combine that story, the Epstein story, right, with the Iran war story, with the inflation story. Inflation jumped to 4.2%, the highest that it's been since 2023. Remember, when Biden left office, inflation was at 2.7%, 2.9%. Well, it was 2.7, I believe, in December or November of 2025, I'm sorry. No, 2024, I'm sorry. And then after Trump was elected, it went up to 2.9% in December. And then Trump took office, and that's right about where it was. Now it's up to 4.2%. And the Fed is going to have a difficult time trying to figure out what the fuck to do at the end of the month or the beginning of the month with interest rates, because on the one hand, you need to lower them to try to increase employment, and you need to increase them to try to decrease inflation. And Jerome Powell is not in charge of the Fed anymore. It's a Trump. It's this guy, the Fed chair. His last name is Wren. So we'll see what he's going to do, or I mean, Jerome Powell's still there. He's on the board, but we'll see what happens. But you have this inflation jump plus the Epstein blockbuster story from the New York Times, plus the war starting, plus the price of gas going back up. And I think look, it can't be the end of the Trump administration, because, how do you end it? Because Republicans won't have the courage to impeach or remove. So I don't know. It's a complete political clusterfuck, and I don't think any of these. I think all of these stories blow up throughout the day. I don't think any of them disappear. That being said, let's read a little bit of the reporting to keep me honest, because I'm just sharing my opinions with you. Let's backtrack. Let's start here with the inflation story, just so we know the actual news. We'll work our way back to the Iran updates. You already heard. I don't need to do. There's not too much more I need to share. If you were here and you watched the video of the New York Times report, there's not too much more I can share, because I watched the video just like you did. I still have to read the in-depth article before I can really talk about it, from an informed perspective. And then, if I have time, I want to talk a little bit about the elections yesterday. But let's just cover this real quickly. Inflation surged in May to the highest level since early 2023 as Iran war-related fuel costs worked their way through the broader economy. Overall, the inflation rate rose to 4.2% in May from a year ago, up 0.5% from April. Inflation has consumer price index changed from 1 year earlier. Inflation has trended up since the start of the year, tied largely to rising energy costs and fuel prices. But don't let that deceive you. That's the trigger, is energy costs and fuel prices. The symptoms or the consequences of that trigger are increased grocery prices, are increased prices to heat and now to cool as we enter the hot summer months. The climate change consequenced hot summer months to cool those power bills are going up all around the country. Thank God here in New Jersey, our new governor, Mikey Sherrill, posed a moratorium on energy hikes. So PSE&G, our energy provider, at least where I live in Jersey, is not going to be able to raise the rates higher, but their costs are going to be affected. But, quote, inflation remains the major economic pain point, regardless of who has to absorb it, said Peter Bukovar, Chief Investment Officer at One Point BFG Wealth. Heather Long, chief economist at Navy Federal Credit Union, said, quote, the frustration for many Americans is that so many of the basics are up in price right now. Gas, food, electricity, and medical care are all clear pain points that are above 3.3% inflation. This isn't just bad vibes about the economy, she added. Rising inflation comes as wage growth is falling. For the second month in a row, inflation surpassed wage growth, which was tracking at 3.4% in the most recent jobs report. That pace has slowed since last year when average hourly earnings are growing we're growing consistently nearly at 4%. So there is the Trump administration and the idiots around Trump and idiot Republicans in Congress like to, whenever they get backed into a corner, they like to say, well, Biden, whether it's about immigration or inflation or the war, they like to blame Biden for all Trump's failures. Well, how about this? When Biden was president, inflation was peaked at 2, when after he brought inflation down and Jerome Powell was the Fed chair, inflation bottomed out at 2.7%, bounced up to 2.9%. It was at 9.4% or something during the worst of the COVID supply chain shock inflation. But he effectively brought that down by fixing Trump's fucked up, disastrous COVID response. Got us back down to 2.7% inflation, got us over to to at least 4% growth in terms of wages, which isn't great, but is something. And now we're down to 3.4% wage growth. Unemployment is increasing exponentially, and inflation is higher. So the question is, were you better off when Biden was president? And the answer is an unequivocal fuck yes. We were better off in 2024 than we are in 2026. And the U.S. wasn't in any wars. So fuck off. And the war in Gaza, which was raging, that Biden did a lousy job exercising his leverage to get to end, is still going on. They're just not calling it a war. It's just a genocide where Palestinians are just getting killed every day, and nobody's talking about it. And there's one starting on its way to happening in Lebanon right now. And we are in our second fucking war that we are now involved in, and we're getting our ass kicked in the second one with Iran. The first one was with Venezuela. And it looks like, and today would probably be as good a day for for the idiot to start it. It looks like we may be heading for a war, which would be a distraction war. Don't be surprised. I know it would be completely unthinkably nutso, but don't be surprised, my friends, if by the end of the day today, to distract from the war in Iran, to distract from the Epstein files blockbuster bombshell from New York Times, to distract from this NBC News and everybody else reporting that inflation is high, don't be surprised if, like, by tonight we hear about, our Navy fighter jets in Southern Command just hit targets in Cuba. It's ridiculous to think, but I almost expect it. I almost expect it. I don't even know what to say, because it's not even just crazy. It's not even just corrupt. It's not even just stupid. It's not even just abhorrent. It's not even just immoral. It's not even just insane. I mean, there's the poverty of language. I've run out of words. I've run out of adjectives, negative adjectives, to refer to the absolute unthinkable fucking stupidity of what's going on at this moment. I've run out of names to call these people. The village idiot doesn't apply anymore. It's not effective enough. Drunken Pete Hegseth. Drunken isn't an effective enough. It's descriptive, but it's not useful. Little Marco Rubio is not. There's no, sociopath, Kash Patel. There's just no more. There's nothing else. I don't know what to call them. I don't know what to say. Right? This is little Marco's war. You're right, Gail. I mean, I am truly at a loss for words. But while I'm at a loss for words, let's squeeze yesterday's election results in, shall we? Because why not? The most entertaining thing about yesterday's election was Nancy Mace losing the GOP primary and getting her ass handed to her. She didn't even break into double digits. She was running. Nancy Mace is a congresswoman from South Carolina. She's a nutcase and a nutcase and a half. I always want to preface it by saying the one thing Mace is on the right side of history with is the Epstein files, and I thank her for that. I appreciate her for that. So I always, when they do something good, that I even when I'm about to mock her for her fucking craziness, I still will always, to the best of my ability, acknowledge the right thing. And Mace was did the right thing when it came to the Epstein files. Everything else, though, Nancy Mace was once a normal member of Congress. And a normal Republican, a conservative, sort of. And had she had the courage, which I'm sure she wishes she would have, bet on a different horse back in Trump's first administration, when she could have called him a fucking lunatic and probably would have lost her seat, gotten primaries, but she would be a very successful and influential, probably independent politician right now. But she didn't have the courage to do that. So her career is coming to a stunning end as of yesterday. Nancy Mace tried to present herself as a normal Republican who was a MAGA crazy. And that's impossible. It's not working for Tom Emmer in the House of Representatives. It's not working for Steve Scalise. It really didn't fucking work for Nancy Mace. Because Nancy Mace, in order to do that, decided to go crazier than Tom Emmer and Steve Scalise. She decided to try to appear normal, but MAGA crazy. And she decided to take up all of these righteous MAGA projects. And her most memorable one was policing the bathrooms in the Capitol building so that the one trans member of the U.S. House of Representatives didn't use it. I'm not making this up, right? She spent an inordinate amount of time doing Fox News and Newsmax hits in the Capitol building at the bathrooms, telling us about how she is protecting the bathrooms from trans people, specifically from the one, the congresswoman from Delaware who is the one trans member of Congress. And she was going to protect. Now that Delaware congresswoman has her own bathroom in her office. So I don't imagine she uses the bathroom in the Capitol, other bathrooms in the Capitol building all that frequently. But hey, if she would have wanted to, she might have been able to, because Nancy Mace got sidetracked a little bit from being from that job, just a little bit. Because if you follow Nancy Mace on X, she's been still vocal about it and her latest, by the way, before she got clobbered in this governor's primary, what she was very, very busy doing on X over the last 2.5 weeks or so was talking about how people who are not natural born citizens shouldn't be allowed to serve in Congress. That's been her newest thing. But if Congresswoman McBride wanted to use the bathrooms in the Capitol building over the last few weeks, she may have been able to, because Nancy was too busy trying to MAGA her way into being the craziest, most MAGA person running to be the Republican running for governor in South Carolina. She lost that race. She couldn't have been crazy enough to get them to vote for her. I think she got like 6% of the vote. In addition to losing that race, and I think she was so sure she was going to win, she is not running for her congressional seat, which I think opens the door for a deep red seat in South Carolina to possibly be won by a Democrat, because I think every seat is accessible to a Democrat in this election, in this midterm election cycle. And if you have the incumbent leaving, I think that makes it even more possible for a Democrat to flip a deep red seat. And Nancy Mace's political career is over. She is done. She cannot be rehabilitated. That's the word. I don't think her career is rehabilitatable. She is done. And I don't know. It's like there's like a little piece of me, and I know you're all going to slap me, like virtually slap me. There's a little piece of me that feels, I don't feel sorry for her, but I think she's a mental case. I think she has genuinely gone crazy. So I think she does need some help. And I don't know how she's going to react to this loss and to the end of her political career. I hope she doesn't do anything particularly crazy, like, dangerous in any capacity to herself or anyone else. So I hope for that, because that would be horrible. But honestly, putting that aside, nobody deserves to fail more than she does, except for Donald Trump. She deserves this loss. She deserves to have gotten stomped in this election in South Carolina, because even the MAGAs probably saw through her. She wasn't truly MAGA enough. It was all a performative show, and what a disgrace. And it's encouraging when a disgrace is disgraced. Lacey from South Carolina now. People can't stand her and thinks she lost her mind. She had weird incidents at stores and at the airport. Oh my God, remember that blow up at the airport where she started like yelling at the TSA agents because they weren't honoring, "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?" They were like, "Get the fuck out. Just fucking go." Whatever. Her bathroom preoccupation was not well received here either. Angie's saying, "I live in South Carolina. They hate her." You are right. Lacey continued, "Her district was blue before her." I did not know that, Lacey. Thank you. I just assumed it was a deep red district if she won. "Her district was blue before her and was gerrymandered to help her win last time. I think her district could flip. There's a chance Charleston. There's a chance. So Charleston is her district. I didn't know that. So yeah. Why, but I guess Charleston was gerrymandered. So is Charleston, has Charleston kind of been broken up now? Does she represent part of Charleston as opposed to the all of Charleston? Or I'm curious what the gerrymander looks like. So if you're familiar with that, please pop it in there, Lacey. I'd love to know. If not, I might look it up, or if you have a chance, Lacey, to kind of, if you're not sure of how the gerrymander work and you have a chance, if you might want to look it up, that would be awesome. If not, don't worry about it. I'll try to remember to check it myself. Yes, Charleston is broken up. Clyburn got the black section. I see. Okay. And South Carolina is, they haven't succeeded in gerrymandering because the South Carolina, the Republican supermajority-led legislature, you actually had Republicans stand up, maybe not all for the right reasons, but still, they stood up. They did not allow the last-minute gerrymander, so Clyburn is still there. So he's not going to get erased. And wouldn't it be wonderful if I don't know who your candidate is, and a Democratic candidate. I hope it's somebody dynamic that can win that seat. That would be fantastic. And then, of course, there's going to be a gerrymander in 2028. We know what the Republicans are going to do because of the Supreme Court decision recently, but Democrats are going to counter that all over the country as well. So it may not help you guys in South Carolina, but it's going to counterbalance things out. And you live in Clyburn's section, Lacey. Okay, great. Thank you for letting us know that. So, but Nancy Mace isn't the only story. She's just the most entertaining story. So we have Graham Plantner. I don't think anybody in the Democratic Party is particularly thrilled that he's the nominee, but he is the nominee. Obviously, Maine Mariners made their choice. Look, I know that there are, there are certainly credible stories of him sexting other women when he was married. There's no reporting as of now of him sexually abusing anyone or abusing anyone physically. It's more about infidelity and inappropriate behavior for that would have in the past taken a politician down. I don't want a candidate with that sort of baggage running for such an important Senate seat when the Senate, we not only have to win the Senate, which we will. I know politicians and pundits and pollsters are arguing that the Senate is in play. I don't think the Senate is just in play. I think it's all but guaranteed the Democrats are going to win the Senate. My question is how decisively will they win it? And in order for that, you have to have that. Susan Collins' seat's got to flip. There's no excuse. There's no reason it wouldn't flip, but for a flawed Democrat in the seat. There's no reason. So I'm not crazy that Graham Plattner is the candidate with his flaws. But look, we fucking elected a sexual predator, not we, but the country, to be president of the United States. We can certainly elect a dog, assuming that there are no allegations of actual sexual assault that come out, but we can, infidelity and sexting, other women, but not sexting them, dick pics that they didn't ask for, consensual sexting of images. I don't really, it sucks and that's disgusting, and I would never treat my wife like that. But I'm okay with him being elected, especially when it comes to how bad when democracy is on the line. And if Mariners voted this decisively to choose him, he blew through that primary. So clearly, either people in Maine don't know what the fuck happened with the recent allegations, or they just don't give a shit. But if that's the sentiment now, I don't imagine that sentiment is going to change. The only thing you'd have to worry about are independents in Maine, and who the fuck likes Susan Collins? So I don't know. I don't know. He's not my preferred candidate. It seems like, but he is the candidate, and I would vote for him. If the election were there and I was in Maine, I would vote for him. End of story. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out subsequently down the line. I'm going to go, so where are we here? A Gamer Vet Dad. I'm going to go with Maynard. Don't give a shit. Fair point. I saw him now on MS Now in the morning, and I have to admit I was impressed. Wish he wasn't personally flawed. Gail, exactly. Angie, hi. Hey, Gail. It looks like the narrative that he's coming up with is, I'm imperfect, I fucked up, I'm going to fight for you, I got your back, I'm one of you, I'm an oysterman, or whatever the fuck he is. That's the plan, and that plan works sometimes. So, Lacey, I agree. We have a convicted rapist as president. Maine is done with Collins. She's supporting a pedo president. My thoughts exactly. Lacey, you always have a way of taking an excellent way of consolidating, what I babble on for a half an hour into one concise sentence. And I so appreciate that, because it gets the point across very effectively. Angie, maybe he can acknowledge and change like Hunter Biden. Just thinking out loud, Trump acknowledges nothing about being a sexual predator. Agreed. And I think if all they need to say, if Collins comes at him for any of it, even in a live debate, he can just say 90 some odd, percent of the time you supported a pedophile sex offender. What standing do you have to judge me? What standing do you have to judge me? You didn't vote to impeach a pedophile sex offender. He was on top of that, he was a convicted felon. What possible, who are you to judge me? Fuck off. I think he's got a solid argument. And again, unless something else surfaces that is non-consensual and he winds up being another abusive creep, and then we have to refocus our efforts elsewhere because he's not going to win, nor should he. But I don't necessarily see that happening. Steve Hilton and Javier Becerra are going to face off in the governor's race in California. It looks like Hilton was able to beat Steyer. I would feel a little bit better, just because why not? If you had Steyer and Becerra going up against each other, you would have you would have a progressive or a moderate kind of fighting it out. You wouldn't have to worry about a Republican. There's no chance Hilton wins this anyway. I'm not concerned about it. No chance in hell you're going to get you're going to get this Republican guy to win. He's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not going to become the Republican governor in California. So I'm not worried about the outcome of the race. I want someone, because of the way the state is structured and how Trump goes after it. I want someone as strong and aggressive, someone who is willing to kick the shit out of Donald Trump. I don't know if that's Becerra. I don't know if he's going to have that confrontational style that that Gavin Newsom has, but it is what it is. So let's have him win, and let's have him win handily. Yes, Mitch, that's what we tried for in CA. Two Dems. Look, California, you guys did what you did, and you know what? It's when you have the battle between progressives and moderates being so significant, and I think it's a healthy battle. I think California is indicative, as fucked up as the politics in California are, like they are everywhere. As fucked up as they are, I think that this battle between the progressives and the moderates actually was pretty healthy. It was a ridiculous fucking primary. I mean, 61 at one point, 61 people in it, just so many egos and attitudes and just ridiculous nonsense on the Democratic side. I mean, you expect fucking crazy on the Republican side. So you had all of that. There was way more drama than we needed to have leading up to this. But when the race, and you had fucking Swalwell, thank God content creators, were the ones that brought Swalwell's sexual assault to the forefront before the primary happened. Once he was out of the race, once the sexual abuser was removed from the race, it did seem like it seemed like healthy politics. It seemed like the war between the progressives and the moderates in the Democratic Party was able to play out in effectively, and I don't think that's bad. I think that's good. I really think that's good. I would have loved to have really seen it play out in the election itself, in the general, but I think it played out the way it was meant to, and here we go on to the. Yeah, it was disastrous, Gail, and it could have been disastrous for the primary too. I'm glad that Steyer and Becerra were able to step up and do some damage in a good way. Lindsey Graham, I think, won his primary in South Carolina. Lacey, I think you mentioned. I really have to get her name down. I'm just looking for your post from before. She's such a dynamic candidate, and I apologize that I don't remember her. I never remember her name. The candidate's going to be running up against Graham Lacey, if you're still here, can you pop her name up into the chat? Because it's nice to see that there's going to be a real battle, and the Democrats really could wind up taking, flipping Lindsey Graham's seat. I actually think it's going to happen. I might be too optimistic. Gamer, I'd be curious what your Dr. Annie Andrews. Thank you, Angie. Gamer, what is your you're a little I know my head is often up in the in the political electoral clouds, and you're back down there in the world of data. Have you gamed out that Senate contest yet? And if so, what are you seeing? I'm curious. And let me just see if there's any other results that I want to talk about. I mean, I think that there's this just because I used to live in Vegas, there's this asshole MAGA governor, Joe Lombardo. He's super popular. He's going up against the Democrat. His name is Aaron Ford. I saw some for the governor of Nevada. I lived in Las Vegas for about a decade, but I saw a news piece a couple months ago about Lombardo. And Gamer, I'm going to get to I'm going to read your stuff in just a second. Okay, I saw a news report about Lombardo and Aaron Ford, and Lombardo is super popular. I hope that Trump brings, the Trump effect brings him down. Ford is a really good guy. He's not dynamic, at all. He just seems like a good guy. So I'm going to keep an eye as we move on the polling and as we kind of move toward that governor's race in Nevada, because I would like to see just a loudmouth, blowhard, Trump-loving MAGA governor in Nevada lose to a good guy. But again, I don't know what Nevada's economy is like. I know they're fucked 7 ways to Sunday because of ICE and tourism is way down. And if Nevadans are foolish enough to vote for the governor who is in lockstep with the idiot who has basically decimated the economy in Las Vegas, then so be it. I could get why the folks in Pahrump and some of the small towns in Nevada would vote for maybe even Boulder City to a lesser, but why Reno and Las Vegas, which are, your two largest populated areas in all Nevada, why the fuck they would vote for that asshole governor is beyond me. Gamer, the big thing that I'm seeing right now is that the Republican turnout is low, and it continues along those lines. In terms of all of those seats, all of those, and it continues along the lines of those seats. All those East Coast seats are going to be up for grabs with a tie or a lilt, maybe a lilt, or I think you wrote lie, but I'm sure it was a typo, toward the Democrats. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I just, as we kind of get into it, I'm just curious. Keep me posted on your, on that, on the races though. Like, I'm really curious. And I'm also curious to see, how, you've got your, I don't know if your system really does, your system you're using to kind of calculate out Trump being fully boxed in, the Nixon effect. I don't know if there's a way you extrapolate that out to, to the House and Senate races. But if you do, I'm really, really curious to find out like what you see coming as we really get into the race. Lacey, yes, Najiri, Lady Lacey has to go. It will be tough to unseat him, but maybe Annie Andrews can do it. I think she can do it. I again, I don't know South Carolina politics, but Lindsey is so fucking pathetic. And she's so dynamic that I don't know. I think she has a lot of populist ideas from what I've seen, and I think people are interested in that. And with Lindsay, especially, and as you know, Trump is not doing anybody favors with inflation. So let's see what happened. Sorry, voice to text. If the trend holds, Republicans are in trouble for all their seats on the East Coast. I'll keep you posted. Awesome, thank you. Thanks, Gamer. All right, on that note, guys, I got to head out. I've got my daily briefing in 4 minutes. I love you guys. 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 live at a time. That's how we keep getting through this. We keep chunking through it. If you are not a subscriber here on Substack or YouTube, please become one. Please like and subscribe. If you're on Substack and it is comfortable for you and it is worthy of your contribution, please consider becoming a paid member. If you're on Twitch, please join the community. We're just getting started on Twitch, and there's literally nobody. You know, I know I've got a lot of work to do building up my Twitch profile and making it look a little bit more inviting. But if this political content was useful for you, please come back. I'll see you guys soon. Much love. I just got to bounce out of each platform at a time. And of course, Pixie knows that we're wrapping up. So first is Twitch.